Sass Queen Bling, and today I have a custom order for a Milky Way. So I thought I would come on here and share with y'all how to make that. And this is Sass. She is the Sass to my Queen Bling. And me and her make up this thing called Sass Queen Bling. One of us does all the work. One of us just looks pretty. Can you guess which one does what? Okay, let's go. Say bye, Sass. Yeah. So I start out spray painting my cup. I've already base painted it flat white with Rustoleum 2 times. And now I'm just going to start with my spray paint, spraying in a spiral pattern. I'm just trying to lay out the pattern that I'm going to use whenever I apply my glitter. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to make sure you get that spiral effect and just kind of fade those colors in the best that you can. Now I just want to heat up my cup because it's easier to apply the epoxy when you have the cup heated up some. I use the epoxy method to apply my glitter, so I want to make sure that this is heated up so that the epoxy will just go on smoothly, like butter. So I've mixed up 5 milliliters of epoxy. I won't use all of that. That's what I always mix up whenever I'm gonna do this method. And I just start applying that to the cup. And as you can see, it goes on easily with the cup being warm. If the cup wasn't warm, it would not slide on so easily and it would just be a pain. So always heat the cup, and it makes this process easier. And then I just cover the whole cup with a nice even coat to get ready to apply my glitter. Now I'm ready to apply the glitter to my cup. I'm using Peachy olive glitters mainly, and then I'm using one glitter from my Mr. Nolas Glitter collection. I will list everything that I've used in the description box below. I start with my chunkier glitters. I just lay those out. I'm laying Emmaline from Peachy Olives on the purple and the teal because it's one that has purple and teal in it. So I'm using that as a base on the purple and the teal. I start with the chunkier glitters and then I will build on those and then use the finer glitters after I've laid all the chunkier glitters down. Now that I've laid all the chunky glitters, now I'm going back and laying the finer glitters over those. going to start with Weekend at Bernie's from Peachy Olive Glitters to start with over my teal. And then I'll go from there. After I apply all my glitters on a Milky Way, then I like to, for the last glitter, I like to use an opal. I'm using Emerghard from Peachy Olives just to cover the whole entire cup, just to fill in any areas that I may have missed, and make sure you get the bottom as well. I also like to make sure I get the rim really well, just to make sure I didn't miss any spots up there. After I do that, now I want to use parchment paper just to make sure I press down this glitter really well, because it saves on sanding. I don't want to have to sand a whole lot, so I just press it down really well, make sure I get the handle and the edges, the top and the bottom, to keep me from having to sand so much. It just helps lay that glitter down flat. Now that I've done that, I'm ready to apply my epoxy. I mixed up 30 milliliters of epoxy. I want to cover this glitter really well, and the glitter sometimes will soak up some epoxy, so I just do 30 milliliters just to make sure it gets good and covered. And I'll let that turn for 6 hours, and I'll go right back in with a second light coat. After I let that turn, then I'm ready to do my Milky Way. I'm going to use Arteza paints and a pigment from Woods Goodies. I will list those in the description box below what I use. I just put a dab of the paints in each cup, and then a tad of the pigment in a cup, and then I will just split up my epoxy among those. So I've mixed up 30 milliliters of epoxy, and I'm going to lay just a very light base coat that I'm going to apply the acrylic paints and the pigment to. You want just enough so it moves a little, but you don't want too much, because you really don't want the paints and the pigment to move around a lot, because then it will just create a muddy mess, and you don't want that. You want to create a beautiful Milky Way. So less is better. Now I want to add my epoxy to my paints and my pigment. just adding very little epoxy, maybe 5 milliliters per cup. You do want the acrylic paint to be a little stringy. That helps it, keeping it a little stringy helps it not to move around so much. So you can see this is the right consistency. Whenever you bring the stick up out of the epoxy, you want it to be stringy where you're just spreading that across the cup like so. That's going to help you not to get so much movement, but get just the right amount of movement that you need to create the Milky Way. And I'm just putting the pink on the teal and the purple, and I do put a little bit of it on the pink too. There's no rhyme or reason, no right or wrong way when you're doing this. Just string it across the cup like so. After I've placed my paints and my pigments across the cup, then I like to heat it just a little bit, just to get a little bit of movement. I don't want to heat it too much because, like I said, you don't want to create a muddy mess, but you just want to get some movement in there. Now I just want to go back in with my glove on, and I just want to drag through areas, like maybe if the pink is too thick or the teal is too thick, I'll drag through those and just kind of place them where I want them at, or maybe even take some off if I have too much. It's just, everybody's different, so it's going to be whatever your preference is. Then I just let that turn for 12 hours and dry really well. And now I'm ready to sand it down. I'm using a 120 grit sanding block. And I'm just going to sand around the bottom rim, the top rim, and the handle really well, and make sure I get any areas in between that may be bumpy. I decided to use a clear cast decal. Now I'm going to spray just a spot in the center where I'm going to put my decal at, And I'm using Sweet Pea Pink, the same pink that I used in the cup, just because I want it to match the cup really well. And now I want to put a light coat of epoxy on. Since I put that spray painted spot there, I just want to have a nice clear coat over that before I apply my decal. So I'm just going to put a really light coat of epoxy on, and then I'll let that turn for 12 hours, and then I'll be ready to apply my decals. Now that that's done turning and dried, I'm ready to apply my decal. This cup was actually for a client's friend who was going through chemo, and she wanted her to have a cup while she was going through that. And while I was making the cup, I got a message that her friend had passed away, and she wanted me just to put "Cancer Sucks" and "In Memory of her friend" on it. I remembered that I had this decal from Crafty Thrivin. It came in a grab bag that I had purchased from there that has "Cancer Sucks" in all colors on it, and I thought that that would be a good choice for this cup. And then I was going to put "In Memory of Dana" along the bottom of that heart. So I'm just applying the Crafty Thrivin clear cast decal, and I'm just making sure I don't have any air bubbles in there when I'm applying that. And I probably should have trimmed it off before I applied it, but I'm just going to go back with my craft knife and just cut any of that off that I need to cut off before I apply this final decal that I have. And so I'm just trying to decide where I'm going to put my decal, just so I know where to cut this clear cast at. So now that I've trimmed that off, I'm ready to place my "In Memory of" decal on there. And I had put a heart design on my Silhouette software, and then I just curved the font around that, and I made the heart about the same size as this clear cast decal, so I would know how much to curve that, because I wanted it to curve around the bottom of this when I applied it on the cup. So it actually works out pretty good like that, and it turns out really pretty, I think. After I get done with that, I sealed the In Memory of decal with Mod Podge, because that is a chrome vinyl and I didn't want it to lift when I epoxy. Now I'm going to go in with my final layers of epoxy. I'm going to do this layer and then I'll go right back in with a second layer, and if anything needs to be sanded after that, I'll sand and then do a final layer. But because I've already sanded it pretty well, this should be my remaining final 2 layers, and then it should be complete. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell so that you don't miss any of my updates. And you can also follow me on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Pinterest, and so that you're sure not to miss anything that I upload or any giveaways that I may have. And again, thank you so much for your support. I truly do appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much. Bye.